Hi, my name's Annie Yu. I'm one of the public health analysts in Hertfordshire County Council, and I'm going to walk through how to use the interactive Young People Survey report. So first off, I recommend you use one of the newer browsers like Microsoft Edge, Firefox, or Chrome, which is what I'm using. They typically load faster. It should work with Internet Explorer as well, but it might be slower and it may freeze a bit more often. There's some useful description at the beginning here on the structure of the report, but for now I'll just talk through them. And always good to note that for data protection reasons, all the values are rounded to the nearest 5, so bear that in mind while going through the report. Here on the sidebar, we have different themes in health like diet, smoking, alcohol, drug use, mental health and well-being, etc. If you click on each section, you'll be taken to it. And it will expand for you to see all the questions within that section. So for example, in mental health and well-being, they were asked about their well-being, worries, about coping, self-harm, and more. And you can click on any of these to skip to the relevant question in each relevant section. So let's go back to the top. Starting from the top, we've got a key theme section here. Which is basically text summarizing some key statistics from most of these themes. And then following that, we've got a comparison section where we have a large collapsible table that contains these auto-generated sentences. For example, this one, describing what the differences are between groups. So we assess these significant differences by comparing confidence intervals between groups. Each tab is comparing between different groups. So for example, this one compares between compares each district to Hertfordshire. This one compares each year group to all year groups. This one compares each sex, so females or males or other. And this one compares each ethnic group to all ethnic groups. So for example, if you're interested in decorum, you will expand on decorum, and then you'll see which themes are available. You'll see which question within each theme, and then you can expand finally to see what the actual comparison is. Each one will have its own sentence that basically just summarizes what the significant difference is. If there's a theme or question that isn't here, that means that there was no significant difference found, basically. So moving on, we've got a small section dedicated to each question of the survey. I'll skip to drug use, for example. Typically, each question or section has 4 tabs. It's got the summary tab, which is the summary text is usually pretty basic. It might tell you how many people responded to the question and give you either the count or proportion of the most common response to the question. There's also a breakdown of all the significant differences found between groups. But to see these, you'll have to switch to the second tab, where it's basically the same structure as what we saw before, except it's specific to the question. So as you can see, the question is the same for all of these breakdowns. And you can expand within each group to see how each group is significantly different from others. So the third one is the graph tab. And there are 2 types of graphs in this report. This is the most common one. It's just a simple bar chart with confidence intervals. The confidence intervals can help inform you on how large the sample size is, since these graphs show proportion instead of actual counts, as you can see. You can click on these buttons at the top here to change between breakdowns. For example, if you want to compare between area, just click on that. And then as you'll see, the legend has updated with the districts. And now you can compare between districts. So you can do the same if you want to compare by sex, by ethnic group, and by age group or year group. You can also manually change the legend items. So for example, if I select sex again, you can also select any one of these other ones, including all responses. So the legend is interactive and you can use it this way, or you can just click on the button again to reset it to a particular breakdown. Okay, so lastly we have a table tab that shows you the raw counts So now you have a table tab where for every response of this question, you've got the count, the percentage, and the lower and upper confidence interval. So this is done for each breakdown. So for each ethnic group, each district, each sex, and each year group. So to get to them, just click on these pages here to see all the breakdown groups. All right, so now let's get to another question that has a different plot type. For example, drugs taken. So for these types of questions, the respondent can choose more than one option. For these questions, we have different plots, and you might notice that there are more than one graph presented here. So like we have 3 tabs for 3 graphs in this question. So the count graph, pretty self-explanatory. It shows you how many respondents chose a particular response. There's a drop-down menu here if you want to see it by different groups, like a particular ethnic group like Asian, Black. As you can see, the counts update here. You can see that the counts are much smaller because it's broken down to smaller groups now. And then we have a proportion graph where it basically shows you the proportion of those that selected yes or no for each option. As you can see by the drop down here, this graph currently shows how each group responded to whether they've taken cannabis or not. If you click on that, you can see the other options here. So a list of all the options available for this question. And finally, you might get this plot that shows you the mean number of options ticked per group. From what I remember, I think these plots are only available for 2 or 3 questions, based off of whether they would be useful or not to present. Besides these differences, all the sections are structured the same way, and it's quite consistent. They all have the same 4 to 5 to maybe 6 tab format. There are a few questions in the demographics theme that don't have as many tabs. For example, like age, you only have 2. This is because it's mainly to show the demographics of the sample, so there's no comparison tab or much summary text because the graph says it all, basically. But yes, otherwise, the rest of the report is pretty much the same format for each question. If you've got any questions or have issues to report, you can email the YPHWS email that is shown in the webinar details. Thank you for watching.